I've been grinding and bootstrapping for so long that like my whole mindset was like, become the thing, chase the thing. And at a certain point I had to stop and remind myself like, yo, you're already it. Just be.
Yeah.
You know?
Hey guys, welcome to this new interview video special for Black History Month. And today I'm here with Will Toms, the founder of co-founder of Rec Philly. And we're talking about just all the great things that comes in entrepreneurship, specifically from the perspective of African Americans for this month, because it's the best month for us. Which actually, funny enough, I always have a major complaint about Black History Month.
What's that?
Why is it in February?
I don't have that answer. I'm curious. Do you know?
I complain about it. I don't know why.
Why do you complain about it?
Oh, well, because what are we going to do in February? I don't want to go outside and get ashy. Like, we can't have a parade. Nobody wants to be out in the cold. So it's like, why can't we get it with Juneteenth? You know what I mean? It's like barbecue season.
Funny.
Like, that would be way, way better.
That's all good. How about we'll just internally also celebrate it every other month?
There we go.
We'll have our own reasons to throw our cookouts.
Bada bang. So, co-founder, Rec Philly. Why don't you tell everybody what Rec is?
Sure.
For anyone who doesn't know.
Yeah, so Rec is an acronym, resource for every creator. But really what we're all about and what we exist to do is to make it simpler for creative people to keep doing what they love, right? And obviously I think the elephant in the room is when you talk about creativity and you talk about artistry, and you want to do that as a livelihood, it's, okay, but how do you make money?
Right.
So for us, we really love to help support this idea of shifting from the mindset of, hey, you're creative, you're an artist, to, hey, if I want to do this full time, I'm inherently also a creative entrepreneur, right?
Mm-hmm.
So our whole mission is to empower creatives to do more of what they love by connecting them to the resources and the tools to create content and be successful, the strategies to really understand how do I build a business model that can help me sustain what I'm doing and then also make it scalable.
Yeah.
And then third, how do we create a space and an environment for the folks who care just as much about the art as they do the business? How do we build a community of those people, right? Because the entrepreneurial journey gets lonely. You're going to be honest about it. So it's helpful to have that support system. So for us, it's, hey, you're a talented creator, but let's make sure you have access to the tools, the strategies, and the community to be successful.
Yeah. And they just opened, this is the main flagship location in the Fashion District, which is fantastic. I remember when I was first walking through, when they opened the Fashion District, and I saw you guys had the coming soon sign out there, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I was so excited, not only just for you guys, but I was glad to see that Philly's Fashion District was going to be going for Philly business. Yeah. Like you guys, and then, there's a couple guys downstairs in retail where it's like these were Philly founded companies and there's space for them here, and that's fantastic.
Yeah, and I think that's really important, and especially for what we're doing, right? We think of this model as a gym membership for creatives.
Right.
But for me, knowing that Philadelphia has always been such a beautiful cultural town, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like what it means to be a Philadelphian to me really centers this idea of art. Right? Creativity, especially music. So for us to be able to plant our flag here and say, for years and years to come, Philly and art belongs at the heart of our city, not only just figuratively, but now literally. Yeah. I think that means a lot. Again, I'm a kid that came. My family comes from Germantown, so coming down to the gallery, was what we did. And even if I was window shopping or just trying to find a place to spend my time as a young person, we know how much this space in particular means to the culture of our city. So even though our city's changing in so many ways, for us to be able to be here, plant the flag for creatives, I think it's important.
It's amazing. Yeah. And it's so you grew up in Germantown.
Yeah, so my family's from Germantown. I grew up, for most of my young life there. And then I had the opportunity to go to Bucks County for high school, and studied there. And that's where I actually met my business partner. Some of my best friends. All
right, I'm ready to hear this story now. Don't stop there.
Sure.
From meeting, how did all this come to be?
Yeah, man. So I moved to Bucks County, not really all just because of the fun stuff, but, part of my story is similar to a lot of young people in the inner city story, Unfortunately, my dad, was incarcerated, he's serving at 30 to 60, and my mom battled drugs. And for my grandmother who raised me, she was immediately seeing me as kind of the young, bright kid I was. She was like, yo, it's important to, get this kid off the block and put him in an environment to be successful. So when I moved to Bucks County, there's a lot of culture shock that came with that.
Yeah.
But on the bright side, I ended up meeting two of who are now, even still years and years later, my best friends. And what we did when we were up there, our way of just figuring out who we were and processing all the things that we've been through was art, right? Whether that for me started with poetry and, just trying to find places for us to just be able to spend time and express ourselves.
Yeah.
We loved how we felt when we had those spaces, right? Whether that was in, my grandmother's living room or, a spot in our backyard to then when our boy Dave was the first of us to get his license.
Yeah.
If in the whip, finding a parking lot so we could just freestyle and all that stuff. We knew how important that was, right? And I think we all made a commitment early on. We were like, whatever it is we choose to do with our lives is going to be centered around this feeling, empowering ourselves, but also other creative people to express, to do what they want to do. And we never let go of that. So that pivoted to, in college, we're doing the same thing. Dave's at Temple, I'm out at IUP. We're throwing shows in the basements of our fraternity houses, right? Giving our friends opportunities to perform. But then that kind of was like, okay, now we're out of college. Let's navigate the Philly music scene, right? And we really quickly learned how difficult it was to navigate and find the resources. We didn't have $100 an hour to keep recording at Milk Boy Studios.
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
We couldn't get on the Live Nation stages, and although we knew the independent grind was possible, it was just like, who's teaching this stuff in a real way?
Yeah.
So that, long story short, landed us in, we found this warehouse in North Philly, 600 square feet, and said, I'm going to put my backdrops up to shoot my videos. Yeah. We're going to build a recording studio for our homie Leonzo, and a couch was our co-working space. And, over the course of just like a few short months, our friends that came by never wanted to leave.
Yeah.
And we realized like, this ain't just the thing we need. This is the same challenge that a lot of us are facing.
Yeah.
So we, kind of doubled down on that model, kept reinvesting everything we had to kind of build better tools there. Eventually built individual rooms for the visual lab and for the co-working space, for the studio. And then fast forward that to, a year and a half, 2 years later, we had a real functioning model of this membership program.
Yeah.
Right? Even there in North Philly at Ninth and Dolphin. And then about 3 years after that, now we're here, having raised over $3.5 million to do it right and do it here in Center City. Now we've got over 800 members. Right? So it's been quite a journey. I know I gave you the long version of that, but
that's exactly what everyone wants to hear. Yeah. And what I love about the story of how you guys came to be is that, to me, like, entrepreneurs come on like two different angles. It's like either it's something that progresses completely naturally and then turns into something that is, a whole business, like what you guys did. And then there's people like me where I'm thinking, how can I make money? And I was just like, all right, we're gunning for it. Here's the plan. But like, I love stories like that because it shows how, even if you don't think that you're going to be the person to go and do something like that, when the opportunity hits and when you can see that like pure need for what it is that you can provide for people, like the passion and the skills all combined together.
Yeah, and I will say this, like, I think I'm a blend of both in the sense that like, I knew really early on I was going to build a business.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't always know what it was. I did know it would be around the creative field. Sometimes I thought it would be a production company. Sometimes I thought it would be some sort of media-based business. But both Dave and I were writing business plans back in high school.
Yeah.
Right. It was always in our DNA. Like the idea of living the traditional corporate life was just not us. Right. At least given what we knew about ourselves at 15 and 16. Right. But at the same time, the thing I am really proud of is we built this business because first we solved our own problem. And I think when you have the opportunity to solve your own problem and you realize that like, even if I'm 1 in a million, that means statistically there's still what?
Exactly.
Whatever. I just knew that it was so valuable to others. And I really quickly learned how to articulate that value, package it up, build business model around it, and do all the things that are required from fundraising to team building and operations.
Yeah. So you guys have Rec, which is for the creatives, and you also have an agency too. So what order did they show off then? Like the advertising agency and then Rec?
So it's kind of it's funny, and I wouldn't even call it an advertising agency. We do 3 things well in our boutique agency, and one of them is events, right?
Yeah.
Event production is heavy. The second is digital storytelling, content creation. And then the third is talent booking.
Yeah.
Right? All of which are kind of around the marketing world, but I don't want to use the word advertising.
Gotcha.
You know
Yeah. I try not to use that too with Mitchell Media. It's like we're not really ad guys,
Yeah.
Marketing's a completely different thing.
A whole different thing. But so for us, one of the things we were good at really early is we understood, even when we were back in the fraternity basements and we were putting, 100 of our friends in a room, we knew that was valuable.
Yeah.
Right? So from our lens, it was like, hey, we're all hungry. So let's find some pizza. And, I think both Dave and I were like, yo, we want some pizza, but like we should be paying for this because what we're doing is special. Somebody wants us to be eating their pizza, right? So that really led us to be like, okay, well, let's go to all the pizza shops and say, hey, we're going to be eating pizza at our parties regardless. Do you want us to be eating your pizza or your competitor's pizza? Right. And that was the spark of what then became our agency because we realized that like brands needed us, we needed the brands, right? And we could always figure out those exchanges. But as we were building the model of the incubator, early on, we knew that, one, we had a bunch of talent around us, and we could be really valuable to help kind of play this bridge between the talent who didn't know, our friends and artists, they didn't always know how to package themselves up to get the money from the brands. And the brands didn't always know how to communicate with talent. Right. So we could help there. But earlier, like the incubator came first, but very quickly it was like, we know that there's opportunity to build revenue that could help support the incubator, especially in its infancy, that would get us here.
And I think that's the really cool thing about a lot of nonprofits now where they can't make money off of, what they do precisely except through fundraising, is that I'm noticing there's like a for-profit, nonprofit combination that's happening now that works to support the infancy.
Well, there's no nonprofit in what I'm doing.
Well, that's what. I wasn't. But it's just funny because it's a comparison that I always draw, where it's like you find the way to make the money in, which like was through the agency, and then you're starting the more risky project of the incubator. And I'm seeing some nonprofits do the similar formula where the part that they want to do with the community is being funded by like a coffee shop or like something like that,
I feel you. And I think the essence of what you're saying is true. I do think about it a little bit differently though.
Yeah, it's definitely different.
Because like I don't think of what we're doing as like anything close to charity.
Right.
Yeah. Like is it socially good and good for the world? Hell yeah.
Yeah.
But in my eyes, like if we're talking about business in its purest sense, it should be good, right? Like there's a lot of, excuse my language, there's a lot of businesses out here that do fuck shit, right? And that's all well and good. Do your thing. It's not really well and good, but do your thing. That's you. But I don't think business has to be that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like the businesses that I respect understand the triple bottom line. You can do well by doing good, right? You just choose not to if you're the person who exploits your customers in order to make profit.
Exactly.
But for me, I think, and then I love that you use that word risk, right? But I think the riskiest thing you can do these days in business is try to play it safe.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the fact that like, I always laugh. I'm like, one of these labels, right? These big labels should have built Rec. They didn't have the foresight because they thought that, it's not broke, don't fix it yet, right? But every year you see their pool slipping. Ford should have created Uber.
Yeah.
But they're not thinking that way, right? So now they're in a situation where the model's changing.
Which is insane. I mean, when you think about it, I've actually never thought about that. Like the fact that the people who actually make the product that's being used through other businesses should have thought of that business.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's a power thing, right? And I think the biggest opportunity that I've had as an entrepreneur, knowing that I studied communications media, I studied economics, right? And I'm a millennial, I fundamentally see the world differently than folks generations before me.
Right.
Power structures were always like this, right? And that's just how it had to happen. You had to own all these things. But for real, as a millennial coming up, like I don't think about power as only ownership, right? I think of, can I get access to what I need when I need it? Right.
Exactly.
And that's how a lot of us think. So the fact that Uber is the fastest growing transportation company in the world and owns no cars, I know that I can be valuable to tons and tons of creatives, make money, but not need to own them to do it.
Exactly.
Right. I just think we're just early on the new model, where all these old models that are baked into the second industrial revolution they just have to still catch up. Yeah,
it's absolutely true. And I think this goes for everything when it comes to starting a business. You've got to find the problem that's being solved. Like, what advice would you give to someone who either has a business idea but isn't exactly sure how it fits into an existing problem, or just someone who's like, I want to start a business, but I can't find that problem that needs to be solved?
Yeah, so I like to think about it this way, because there's I build a product and then I go find people to sell it to.
Yeah.
But I actually built my business off the opposite way, and I prefer this way. For me, it's about figure out who you want to be valuable to, right? Because then you can start building a community of those people, and then you can get intimate enough to realize what they need based off the problems they have.
Yeah.
Right. That's kind of how I like to think about it, and I think if you do it that way, it's easier to figure out a real problem to solve instead of arbitrarily being in your basement just trying to like create the next big invention.
Exactly. Right.
And I also think it helps even more if you are a part of that community you want to be valuable to.
Yeah, that's a huge thing. And it's like, starting Mitchell Media, it's like I knew I wanted a company that was going to be there for entrepreneurs. Because the way I see it is when you're either a small or mid-market business, you have products to give or product or service. You have operations to run, and you also have to do your marketing.
Yeah.
And growing up, like both my parents are small business owners, they were always great at only 2 out of those 3.
Sure.
So I feel like for a lot of people, you start the business to be good at providing that service or product.
Yep.
And if somebody can help you with either, that's where the virtual assistants come in and take care of operations, or someone who takes care of your marketing, and you're set. And it's like finding that was from being a part of that community. It was from knowing entrepreneurs. It was from spending time around people who were, running the hustle on top of the hustle.
We needed.
Yeah. And when it comes to like just being like a Black entrepreneur, I think the most amazing thing about the opportunities that we have, especially in the city, is that we face a lot of discrimination. But even, and this is an example I give for a lot of people, even if we just sold to other people who were like us and would be on board with us, we could still make it. So to me, there feels like there's not a lot of excuses to not try.
Sure.
Making your own business. But I'd love to hear your take on that.
So I mean, I dig that. And I think that we're getting to a point where we can talk about people who are like us.
Yeah.
And go beyond race, right? Because we're at a point in time where like, we all grew up with our, iPods and, enter all these different, the internet, right? So we get to have a wider breadth of experiences than those of us before us.
Right.
Therefore, our perspectives.
Yeah.
Because I know some Black folk that ain't really folks, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I know some white folks who down, what I mean? In a real way. But I do understand what you mean, like the idea of like, for us thinking about economics collectively in that way is how I think about what you mentioned. I think there's a ton of power in that. I think there's the most power in that. But, it's about making sure that, us as Black entrepreneurs, we don't pigeonhole ourselves to being like, oh, well, people should support me just because I'm skin folk, right?
Right, exactly.
Like, at the same time, our products have to be competitive, right?
Yes.
Like they have to be great. The level of professionalism has to be there, and it's a bonus, right? That we're folks. So that's kind of how I like to think about it. But I really do believe that for us, I'd like to say the path to equity is through equity, right? So I just know it's important for us to own shit and build businesses and ones that are empowering to those that we serve.
Yeah, definitely. So when it comes to like, your journey, just like as a kid who grew up in the city, making it all the way here, what advice would you give to someone else who, wants to find that next level of not only freedom from the typical model of going to college, getting the job, and then sticking in there until retirement, when they're not seeing like a tangible path to get there?
Man, I think it's it's about being a life learner, right? And I think that's kind of almost like what everyone says at this point. At least I would hope a lot of people around you are saying that. But they say it because it's so true, right? I was a kid growing up going to the public library. Like my grandmother after school was like, "Yo, be in this library with it, yada yada." But I'm so glad that was my experience because now like that's all I do, man. Anytime I'm not actually doing my obligations for the business directly, I'm always trying to learn the next thing. And I think that you got to have that even if you are still in the 9 to 5. Like you should be spending time outside of that, just figuring out what skill can you develop, how do you build your own capacity. And then after that, I think the next thing is we have to really take a hard look at what we're consuming and how we're conditioning ourselves to think. Because I do believe the scarcity mindset is a killer. Right. And I don't want to point fingers and blames and stuff, but like that's just kind of how we've been conditioned. Right. So it's important to do the learning, but also the unlearning.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So you know, like, yo, you have that vision, you have that idea, like, you can execute it first and foremost, right? And really believe that. Because I believe that you got to think it, you know what I mean, before you can really be it.
Right.
You got to see it before you can be it. So it's like you got to make sure that you believe in yourself. You got to make sure you're doing the hard work to really learn the industry that you want to enter in, so you know that you're prepared when you get there. You got to be willing to put yourself out there, get the networking in, because relationships will open doors that nothing else can.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah.
So that's what it's about for me. Do the learning and the unlearning, and then believe in yourself.
Yeah.
And like that sounds so silly to be like, believe in yourself, but like I know a lot of people out here that say they want to do stuff, but like their actions show that they don't really believe.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
And it's like, as a, when you're running a business and when you're leading, you have to be your own best salesman in every situation.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're a team of one or a team of two co-founders or however it is that your business comes to be, the first thing I learned was that, like, if you don't take yourself seriously, no one else will take you seriously. You have to take that extra effort of, every morning you look yourself in the mirror and it's like, I am already where I want to be.
Yeah.
Like, I am already killing the game. I'm already, 30 under 30 or 40 under 40. Which one is it? It's 30 under 30. Yeah, I was like.
and I'm 28, so I'm still.
Hey, there you go. Almost there.
Still trying to get that list.
Yeah.
What's up, Forbes?
Hey, hit this guy up. If Forbes watches this video, I would just be amazed on my own.
Listen, but you'd be surprised, man. These companies be watching. They might not always engage and like and this and that, but you believe your name is in rooms that your feet haven't walked in yet.
Ooh. That's a great quote.
It's a fact.
Is that an original?
Nah, it's not.
I was about to say.
I can't take credit for that, but it's truth. And I just know it to be so, man. So many things have happened in my life, especially as of late, that I know it.
Yeah.
And it's a part of that, being it and reminding yourself that you're already it thing. One of the things in my personal experience is like, I've been grinding and bootstrapping for so long that like my whole mindset was like, become the thing, the thing, chase the thing. And at a certain point I had to stop and remind myself like, yo, you're already it. Just be.
Yeah.
And that creates a frequency and an energy that helps push the thing forward.
Yeah, definitely. And I think another thing that's really important and I think we all probably have this view as entrepreneurs, is helping the next generation that's coming in. But for, the African-American entrepreneurs that have already established themselves, like the last generation, that's like looking to, either pass their business on or get their kids involved, when it comes to working with the next generation of entrepreneurs coming up and making sure that we're, as the community that we are, that's so tight knit, like, where's the connection there? Like, where is millennials' connection to Gen X?
Yeah. Of what I take from that question, I just think the key is just mentorship, and I can only speak from my experience, but I know that from me and a lot of the people closest to me, we didn't always grow up with strong mentors.
Yeah.
And I think it's a blessing that you have two parents that are entrepreneurs, that like you got to see them do it. But for us who haven't had that, sometimes we don't even know what it looks like to build that sort of relationship, right? And some of the older folks, because they haven't put themselves in a position to be life learners and want to kind of build those relationships and pass down the game, there's a challenge there, and there's been this generational disconnect.
Right.
So I think it's important for us to come to tables where we understand the value of each other, right? We can both learn from each other, both sides, right? Because the world's changing and we're on the cutting edge of how it's changing, but there's also so much just knowledge and just human, here's how it works, that can be passed down from the older generation. But I think that mentorship is the key, man.
Yeah.
I didn't realize the importance of having a mentor until I was 25.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I can't blame anybody, but I know that that's the key, and it's going to take lots and lots of dialogue, healthy dialogue, for us to make sure that we're doing that, understand the importance of that, and we're doing it well.
Oh, yeah. And I think there's a serious responsibility on the hands of the last generation to now, even just think about like my father, where it's like, he's been in business for 30 years.
Wow.
And it's like, it's about time, like outside of the impact that he's made on me, like you have to encourage everybody else at the same time. You have to take that responsibility of the next generation needs to know what you did and what walls you broke through and how it is that they can take that step like you.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of that is just media. Like, it's just speaking out and it's saying, you know, what can I do to share my story? How can I, you know, encourage people who are coming up? Because now we've got the 18-year-olds, you know, who are killing it in a whole different way than us. I mean, you know, like they're in thousands and thousands of followers in a way that I couldn't even really think about right now, you know? On the side of just like running things day to day, it's like, you know, every generation just comes in with a brand new set of skills, a brand new refreshing of just knowledge. And a lot of it comes naturally.
Sure.
And I think that the generation before us, the big thing that they learned was just like how to keep pushing forward.
Yeah, the perseverance
Yeah,
is
the
real.
perseverance, yeah.
That's real because, you know, I always admire that perseverance because now everyone wants it microwave, right? They want it like quick, fast.
On an app. Bam.
You know?
It's right here, yeah.
And that's so dangerous because, like, you know, that instant gratification is like the opposite of what entrepreneurship is.
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean? This is a long road and the payouts are far down the road. It seems like always, right? So it's about really having that grit and that fortitude to keep pushing, right? And to stay focused. So, yeah, shout out to the OGs, man.
Yeah, majorly.
Yeah, we all stand on the shoulders of giants.
Oh, yeah. Wait, so let me ask you this, though. So before, well, we kind of talked about this already. Like, you were doing music, you were doing poetry. But like,
so I got it clear, though. I wasn't doing music proper. Like, I was freestyling with the homies, but, like, nah, that was never my gift. But poetry, and then I grew a passion for media production. So film, video, some short films, shoot music videos.
Gotcha.
And at school, I thought that I was going to, you know, go into television production. You know, intern at NBC, Universal, that whole thing.
Yeah.
I realized really quickly that I hated news.
Yeah.
And then I got to go into the creative department, which was cool. We were doing creative services for different businesses. But then after that, as we were building our first company, Broadsheet Music Group, which is a production company throwing events, creating content, I actually got recruited to work at a marketing agency. So I really come from that world.
Yeah.
I've, you know, what I would call some pseudo-classical marketing agency training, and I work for some of the biggest entertainment brands in the world.
Yeah.
Doing digital strategy.
Yeah.
So my role for them was doing day-to-day execution of the marketing campaigns I developed for folks like Eminem or Shady Records or Ice Cube. So now I think that my whole lens of the world is through that of an economist and a marketer, right? Specifically a digital strategist.
Yeah. And that's really important. Like, just the strategy behind anything. Like, it's going to be probably the most key part of starting a business. Yeah. You know, it's like you can write the business plan, you can put a website together, but like at the end of the day, who are you targeting? Why are you targeting? How are you targeting? When it comes to like the world nowadays and how it is that people want to consume things, they want to consume it from someone who they know. Like, they want to feel connected with a brand. And I think that's what the next generation has a huge like connection with, is that they've come up watching the first generation of YouTubers from 2005 out. Yeah. You know, they've seen how brands are transitioning from, you know, telling you need to buy this because it's the best price to you need to buy this because the person who you like also bought this.
Sure.
And I think that's a huge advantage for the next generation. Like, just being able to know that personality will succeed, you know, sometimes even having the best price or the best product.
Yeah, I think it's about trust marketing, right? And we're at a space and time where, fortunately, folks our age and younger, we care more than just about price. Not that we have tons and tons of money, but we're just a little bit, I would like to believe, a little bit more conscious, right? Like, when we care that, like, hey, I know what global warming is, and as much as some people want to say it doesn't exist, it fucking does, right? Like, and sorry for cursing so much, but it does. And it's like, when you really think about it, we can talk about voting and all that kind of stuff, but like, for real, outside of those ballots, we vote with our dollars. Yeah. So for me, it's hard to be like, hey, I want to, you know, vote for a more equitable future, but then I'm still putting my dollars in the hands of people who I know are absolutely against that equitable future. And I think that, you know, we're at the very beginning of this generation of folks who are, again, I won't say we're the first ever, but are, again, more conscious, and we're willing to vote with our dollars.
Yeah. And it's like such a great balance between like being like responsible for the community and for the world as a whole, but then also being industrial. And that's like a unique thing that I think we're doing that's so different.
Yeah, and the reason why it's so different is because it's just now it's not just now possible.
Right.
And
that's true. Yeah. I didn't even think of it that way.
So I'm a nerd. So like, I think about this stuff a lot, right? And when you start talking in this lane, like, this is where the economist out, right? Because like, I'm really, really deeply passionate about these ideas of like the third and fourth industrial revolution. And, you know, I don't. Are you familiar with this?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I did a whole class project on that in 5th grade. Had a whole billboard out for it. I love that stuff.
And so like when you think about it, you know, back then when our economy was rooted on deeply into fossil fuels and deeply into these physical products and things like that, scarcity was inevitable, right? Because it was like you gotta have it or you don't have it, right? And then the margins. But now that we're getting to a place of zero marginal cost, right? And then I'm gonna connect this to us as Black people, right? The idea of zero marginal cost, right? It doesn't cost me much or anything to create one more of that good of service, right? Us as Black people, the most valuable thing that we've always contributed to the world has been our culture. The fact that Black culture runs the world, you can't even question it anymore.
Oh yeah,
hip hop is the #1 selling music in the world, right? It's leading the world in influence. When you think about our films that are now being created, right? It doesn't take any more money for one more person to see Black Panther. It doesn't take any more money for one more person to listen to Kanye, SZA, or Kendrick, right? Or Tyler. So when you think about the fact that we've always been creating culture, we've always been creating the value, and you can't tell me that music hasn't been selling everything, right? Because it does. But now we're also at a space and time where us as young Black people understand the importance of ownership. Now we're owning the thing that happens to be a product at zero marginal cost.
Oh yeah.
Right? So the upside is through the roof, where we couldn't even take advantage of that 20, 30 years ago because we had to feel like we had to sell ourselves and our products to the label to then tell us what it was worth, and then they would monetize it, right? But even back then it took money to have CDs and to drive the cars to get them into the stores, right? And all that stuff. So we're at a point now where it don't cost no more money to get this value into someone else's hands. We don't have to have any middlemen, so we get to reap all the upsides and own it. So I'm really optimistic. I think the next 15, 20 years are going to look beautiful for young entrepreneurs, specifically creative entrepreneurs. Because now the world is in our hands. Literally, right?
Literally, yeah. And that's the thing where it's like there is no excuse for whatever idea you have to just push it out. Because you can do it yourself. You can get that opportunity where someone will notice you. And even there's brilliant ways to make people notice you. And there's so many opportunities.
And the best way to get people to notice you is to be valuable. Right? There's all the tips and tricks and hacks, and we talk about SEO, and we can talk about all these other things. But one of the first things I always tell our creators is like, yo, if you want to think about marketing, think about how you can be valuable to people. Right? And when you want to think about brand, stop using the word brand and say, what's my reputation?
Right. Yeah.
Do I have a reputation for being valuable? Right? So, yeah, man. That's how I think about it.
I think it's just beautiful that, in my opinion, I think that I wanted to do a video for MLK Day. And I was like so far behind schedule that I was like, you know what, we'll do something for Black History Month.
Sure.
But the spark of an idea that I had for a video was about how, you know, every year I try to listen to his speech again. You know what I mean? Like, I have a dream of something that's so essential to our community and the future that has been created from that.
He's got a couple good ones.
There's more. Oh, yeah, there's more. And when I listen to that speech, I think about how the dream that he had happened years ago. Like, that's the past now. And what's happening today is past what he probably was even thinking then. You know, it's like we've reached just a point where our generation moving forward, we're all merged together. Like, to me, I think, like, discrimination has ended with us. You know, it's like, it's a tough one, you know, and that's me being really optimistic. Maybe it's just being in Philly where it's like everybody's friend. Like, we just like, for the most part, you're going to connect with almost anyone.
I feel you. If what you mean is like, for the percentages, folks our age are less discriminatory. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
There's a lot of people still alive.
Right. I'm going like, I went really wide with that one, you know, and it's like, that to me is like a major optimist where it's just like, there's so much joy that comes to my heart from seeing people come together. And it's like, you know, it's just amazing to see how far we've come. And it's like, there's so much more to go, you know?
But there is so much more to go, you know, and I always want to be, you know, careful saying things like what you mentioned. Not that I think you're wrong, because I think where your mind is, I know what you mean, and I believe that's true to a certain extent. But I think that we also have to remember the privilege that you and I have.
Yeah.
Right. We have the privilege of the education that we have and the health that we have and, the spaces that we get to navigate.
Mm-hmm.
But we have a thing where, folks will let us in rooms and treat us certain ways. But like, I got cousins that don't have that privilege.
Yeah.
Right. So there's still a long ways to go on that front. And that's why it's so important for, I think, us to create media like this and have these kind of conversations and dialogues. Because I know a lot of people in a lot of parts of the country that have never had the privilege of even sitting in a room with someone having this kind of conversation.
That's true. That's
they
true.
don't know that it's possible.
Oh, yeah.
And again, if you don't see it, you can't be it.
Yeah.
So therefore, they're still maybe 2 decades back for real, because of where their access allows them to go.
That's really true.
So that's why I was
put
the asterisk there.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Like, it's some places like,
yeah.
My family's from the South, like, first and foremost. So it's like, I see some stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm hopeful.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like there's some serious change coming right around the corner. And I think a lot of it starts with education. It's just, all of it does. And it's what's, kind of challenging in the country is that it's so undervalued, the public school system and everything,
See, now you're going to get me right.
See, I'm like way off the course of this interview at this point, so now we're just talking.
No, I don't think so. But I think if we're talking about entrepreneurship, we're talking about, ownership, we're talking about Black History Month, like, it's hard to talk about these things without talking about, for real, where we're going is like these systemic systems that create the status quo.
Mm-hmm.
So when you talk about like, we're undervaluing education, it's like, I don't think we're undervaluing it. I think people know the value of it, and that's why some people have it, some people don't.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I'll just leave it at that. But it's on us to then, like you mentioned, the older generation has to do. We have to pass down the information that we have, and really stand in our power, in hopes that we'll give the generation after us the permission to do the same.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like the more that we can just keep pushing that ball forward, the more people are going to get caught in the path. And it's magnetic because it's like the more that you can see the success of other African Americans, the more that you understand that that's something you can be.
It's facts.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why we didn't always come up learning that we were as brilliant and powerful and great as we were.
Yeah.
And that our history didn't start on the slave ship.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Right?
That's a whole nother one, but that's absolutely true. Yeah.
It's real. It's real.
Oh yeah.
So hopefully I didn't skew the path of this.
No, I was like going way off at a certain point. It's like I forget the cameras are here and I'm just talking, But that's the whole point of having a conversation like this, is that it's not about sticking to a formula. It's not about saying we got to hit this point, this point, this point. Don't talk about this thing. This is too political. It's just about what is life. Like, what are you going to experience? And I guess let's go on this note. Like, for someone who's watching this video, someone who's young, African American, and isn't sure if entrepreneurship is the right path for them.
Yeah. What
would you give to them as advice? Just as they're teetering on the edge of maybe I should do it, maybe I shouldn't. I don't know if I'm the right person to do it.
This is a really good question, and I think I'm a great person to ask. My personal opinion is, if you're teetering on the should I do it, should I not do it, don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
But when you get to the point when you're at that day job, you're sitting at your desk, and it takes everything in you to not be going on other websites, taking down the notes of these brilliant ideas that you have and trying to push your own thing forward, that's when you know. I knew early on that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I did do the corporate thing, right? Mm-hmm, and I did navigate those spaces. But it got to a point where it was just like, I can't.
Yeah.
Like, I just can't. I wake up and living for the weekend, I'm dragging myself into the office. My work's suffering, and even if my work wasn't suffering, just my heart was suffering. I know I have a bigger purpose than to be fulfilling this other person's dream.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then those are the people we want to be entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Where it's I eat, sleep, breathe this other thing. Because I used to be on a different vibe with this, but now I don't shame people for wanting to just have a job and do this is the safe thing. I get it. It's not for everybody. But at the same time, if it's for you, I do believe that we have an obligation to do it.
Yeah.
If you know you have the leadership ability, if you know you're a critical thinker and a problem solver, and you have the grit to keep going. I mean, for us in Philadelphia, one of the stats that's my North Star that I hope my legacy plays a role in shifting is the fact that right now we're currently a majority Black city. 41% of our city is African Americans. However, us as African Americans only own 2.8% of the businesses.
Yeah, and not to mention the real estate. That's
So it's knowing that I have what it takes to be an entrepreneur, to build something, to do it, I have the responsibility to, knowing that gap ain't gonna get closed from talented and smart people like me passing it up.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? But if you're like going back and forth and you're battling, you're like, I don't think I can, yada, 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 then don't.
Mm-hmm.
But if you know it's in you, stand up and do it.
Yeah, and it'll come to the point where like it's
You'll
the
know.
right time.
You'll know.
I teeter-tottered for a long time.
Yeah.
Between different jobs that I had, I was like, all right, let me just stay here for a little bit. And then, you get pushed so far and it's like, all right, I'm going to freelance for a little bit, but I don't know if I want to go all the way into the business,
It's like love, right?
Yeah,
It's like, yo, am I in love? Am I not? No.
Yeah, you're not. If you're asking it, you're not.
No. So that's how I would answer that.
Which is funny because, fun fact, we're shooting this on Valentine's Day.
There it is, man.
But yeah, no, I mean, it's going to hit you one day. Like, you're going to know, like, this is the time. And for me, it was a combination of knowing I can't do it anymore. Like, I was working in a nonprofit, and it was just so much work for, at that point, it was overwhelming what I had thought would have been as hard as starting a business. And I'm like, man, if it's this much work for this much pay, then maybe I could do a slightly more work for slightly more pay and it would be worth it.
Yeah, I hear that.
And then it was just waking up one morning and seeing the opportunities, because those, it's a combination to me of opportunity and then will. Like when the two are completely together, and the will can overcome to create the opportunity, and sometimes the opportunity, if it's too much, then, you're not going to have the full will.
Yeah.
It's such an interesting thing. Like that goes into your mind. It's a lot of physical and mental athletics to be able to get through starting a business. I mean, I had no idea that in my first year I was going to lose so much weight. It's like you miss like 4 or 5 meals out of the week.
Easy.
And then you're just running, like literally. Like there's so much that goes into it, and I mean, I think that everybody, what they should take from this interview is like, it's completely possible.
It's all possible.
It's all inside of you already. And, as a community, regardless of where it is that you're headed, you may not be the next entrepreneur if you're like so sure you're going to be a brain surgeon, because that's great too. It's we need them. We need everybody. But if that's where you think you're headed, this has got a lot of great advice for you already, So, Will, thank you so much, man. Where can people find you? What's coming up that they should know about if they're watching this video?
Cool. So if you guys want to follow me, keep up with me in my journey, you can do that by following me on Twitter, Instagram, at the Will Toms, THE, Will, TOMS. If you want to follow the company that I've built, alongside my business partner, Dave, that is Rec Philly, REC Philly. And beyond that, one thing to look out for is I'm really excited. I'm actually going to release my first book.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be doing that over the next few months. So stay tuned. Been working on that for a while, and I'm really proud of it. So if you want to kind of get further into the mind of how it works, and there's a lot of very actionable, tangible tips for young entrepreneurs, creative, or creative adjacent, or even not creative, to really how to think about building a business from an idea to a profitable business. It's all in there.
So it's got it's a mix of that and then a little biography, right? Yeah.
So I didn't do the whole life story in this one,
Gotcha.
But I definitely cue up the beginning with a lot of context to our journey, and my journey, and I think that's important just to get the framing of it all. But after that, it literally goes and it's a strategy guide, and I've been really intentional on how I designed it. So if you do all the exercise at the end of the chapters, you will walk away with a frame of a business plan, which is super dope. So it's all about just making, these ideas accessible for us and actionable, so we don't get so intimidated that we don't move. So it's dope.
That's
dope.
awesome.
I'm really excited about it.
You guys have to follow Will, and you gotta keep watching out for that book when it's coming out, because for me and my journey, books that were going to have you interact at the end of every chapter to build something and to go somewhere, that's what you need. Like more than anything else, that's what you need.
That's it. They're my doers.
So it's like it's reading, it's back and forth. I'm going to buy it as soon as it comes out. I'm super excited. And I'm going to make sure that other people get that in their hands too. So make sure that you guys, leave a like if you enjoyed this. Drop subscribe for brand new videos coming out soon from Mitchell Media and all that great stuff. Thank you guys for watching. Catch you next time.